don't want them to gain another yard. You blitz all night! And if they cross the line of scrimmage, I'm gonna take every last one of you out. You make sure that they remember forever the night they played the Titans.
The margin for error is so small. I mean, one half a step too late or too early, and you don't quite make it. 1/2 second too slow, too fast, you don't quite catch it. The inches we need are everywhere around us. They're in every break of the game, every minute, every second. Winners win and losers lose. I can't explain it any better than that. I don't know how it happens. Well, winners win. And if you create a culture of losing, if you keep being a victim, if you keep letting losing happen to you, if you keep letting people do you and treat you any kind of way, it's going to become a culture.
Not tomorrow, baby. Winning is going to be a culture after tomorrow. I have a strong, strong feeling. Good evening, everybody. Game Time Brian here, otherwise known as the Mailman. Off for 2 days. Big game in DFW tomorrow. Huge game. Dallas hosting the Ravens. The media has bailed on the Cowboys. Is saying just outlandish things that it's not fair to any other team. The things that they're saying about the Cowboys regarding their future in this season is ridiculous. The blanket statements that are being made is ridiculous. There's a double standard in this league when it comes to the Cowboys, and I'm here to say, calm down. Let's look at the facts, and the facts of the matter are there's a clear answer of what happened last week. I'm not telling you that they're going to fix it with the snap of a thumb, a snap of the fingers, but I'm going to shed some light on maybe what the difference is, what happened from week 1 to week 2, but the blanket statements that are being brought against the Cowboys after a week 1 where now we have people having revisionist history of what happened. We dominated that week 1 matchup on the road, okay? I don't care how Deshaun Watson looked. We dominated, okay? We dominated the Cleveland Browns on the road opening day. That's a good win, okay? Cleveland Browns won last week, everybody. So they're 1-1. It's not like they're some horrendous team like 0-2, you know, that, oh, by the way, we're playing the Baltimore Ravens tomorrow, who are 0-2. Yet they seem to be getting all of the praise from teams past. Now, I will say I have faith in John Harbaugh to right the ship, but don't just crap on the Cowboys on the way to doing so. I have answers as to what happened last week. I have total confidence. But, you know, I'm just going to get into it. The Baltimore Ravens. Do you know where they last? They stand in defense through the first 2 weeks. All we can gauge is what they've done over the first 2 weeks. That's the only thing that we can gauge is what they've done over the first 2 weeks. Just like the Cowboys, just like the Eagles, just like the 49ers, just like everybody else. Small sample size. Yet Dallas is done, and everybody else still has a shot. Dallas has no shot to win. It's absolutely ridiculous. Baltimore Ravens, dead last in yards against the pass. They give up 257 passing yards a game through 2 weeks. Dead last. That's not a Baltimore Ravens defense that I remember. They're dead last. Okay? I have more news here for you. I have it written down. The Cowboys are 12-2 coming off a loss the last 3 years. I repeat. The Dallas Cowboys are 12-2 coming off a loss against the last 3 years, let alone an embarrassing loss like last week that I called them out on the carpet. You know, they are well aware of what's going on in the media. And they're going to take names tomorrow. I'm just letting you know, Okay, I'm not saying it's going to be a blowout. You know, my original thought was, oh my God, we're playing the Ravens, until I dug into the numbers. And then you realize that Baltimore's passing defense is not good. They're not getting to the quarterback either, FYI. And let me just tell you, our offensive line with Zach Martin, Cooper Beebe, and Tyler Smith is better than the New Orleans offensive line of last week. There's something going on with scheme, okay? We are getting unbelievable push and holding line of scrimmage, but we're not creating running lanes. There's something, I don't know if it's Mike Solari, I don't know what's going on. I just think people need to be patient, but I don't expect a huge running day against the Ravens. But Dallas Cowboys are 12-2, coming off a loss in the last 3 years, tied for first in the NFL with the Buffalo Bills with the same record. Dak Prescott is 26-12 in his career after a loss. Okay? McCarthy, he is also a 12-2 following a loss. The Cowboys are underdogs. That's the best. That's music to my ears. Okay? Everybody's crapping on Mike Zimmer, yet from what I'm being told, the people that I trust, boots on the ground, this is the best week of practice they've had in a long time. Okay? You're going to have some additions. You know, Carl Lawson has been brought up. He's good against the run. You're going to see Jordan Phillips has an issue with his wrist. It's nothing bad, but he hasn't been playing good. He's not a good run player. He needs a little rest. So they're going to make some additions. Okay, again, we were very good. Dak Prescott, okay? I didn't realize these names. Well, I don't need to say that stat right now. I'll save that for later. But I want to play a clip, and this is about as a good of an exclamation that as you're going to get regarding the Dallas Cowboys, all right? From what happened from week 1 to week 2. Now, that doesn't mean that we're just going to roll over the Ravens. But let's listen in, and I will comment throughout.
You weren't able to connect the dots there, but we're going to connect the dots to what some fans are questioning whenever it comes to Mike Zimmer's defense.
Dude,
King of sick. There you go.
So sick transition.
Pat, I know we had talked about it earlier, but base package, sub package, just for the casual football fan, outline what the difference is between the two.
So what I want to do is, because I have some numbers and trends here, I would like the former NFL player to go ahead and break down the bases and subs, and then what I'll do is I'll follow up on IRS, and I'll give people some trends as far as what the Cowboys have done through the first 2 weeks and what Mike Zimmer typically does over the course of a season.
Yeah, in the most simplistic form, right? You have your base defense, meaning that you have 4 down linemen for this particular defense, 4 down linemen, 3 linebackers, 2 corners, 2 safeties. Yeah. That's usually your defensive personnel that you come out with. When you start talking about your sub packages, now you're talking about matching the personnel of the opposing team. So obviously if you come in with 2 tight ends or 1 tight end, then I'm going to probably stay with my base, right? My 4 down, my 3 linebackers. If I come in with 3 receivers, it's probably most of the time it's not a good idea to stay with your 4 down linemen and 3 linebackers. Right. You might want to go down to 2 linebackers and bring in an additional cornerback. So now you have 2 linebackers, 3 cornerbacks, 2 safeties, right? So then if
and
you
what would that be called for the fans out there?
That's their nickel package, right? So then once you go to dime, now you're bringing in 4 cornerbacks, and then you have 2 safeties over the top typically. Then you can even go from there, right, and go to 5. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do. You can make whatever you want, right? But pretty much what we're getting at is most teams, most defensive coordinators sit in the box, right? It's usually relatively difficult for defensive coordinators to sit on the field. It's a different perspective unless they're just veterans, okay, and they just understand the game. But reason why most starting defensive coordinators sit in the box is because they can see the personnel groupings that are coming in off the field. So when a play finishes immediately the offensive coordinator yells out 11 personnel, 11 or whatever the name of it is, right? So immediately the players know, all right, I'm going in to get a tight end out. I'm the receiver. I'm the third receiver. Tight end, you come out. That's what it is. Now, the defensive coordinator is looking on the sideline. He's like, okay, that's what they're coming in with. All right, now I'm changing nickel, right? And then they go in with their substitutions. So they're matching personnels to put them in the best situation possible to be able to handle whatever is going to be presented on that play. Coach Zimmer, as you'll get into, doesn't necessarily always do that. Right. Okay, they'll come out with 3 receivers, and most of the time if they go to 4, he'll change. But if they go to 3 receivers, most defensive coordinators would go to nickel. Yep. Some defensive coordinators are like, you know what? No, my system is my system. We're staying base, meaning that I'm going to take one of my 3 linebackers now and just walk him out and have him just try to disrupt what your slot receiver is now doing.
AKA Baltimore.
Yes. So that is it in its most simplistic form. Right. Most coaches match personnel groupings based upon what's coming in.
You have to
Some
match
coaches
personnel
don't,
groupings
because they're just that confident in their scheme.
They are, and the thing is.
Now we're going to get to more of this. This is very important to understand because it gets into what happened between game 1 and game 2 and why it looked the way it did. But again, this goes out to Eagles Drew. I'll give you a little credit for this. Zimmer, old school man, he wants to run his scheme, okay? He knows what happened. He expected more from the guys out there than they could deliver for him. And in doing so, you brought DeMarvion Overshown, only had 18 snaps in the whole football game when he was a standout the week prior. There's a reason why Dan Quinn ran nickel last year. Because the personnel dictated him doing so. And the difference is when you have nickel this year, our linebacking core is way better. You don't want to play dime. You don't want to play dime defense because then you take linebackers off the field. And you go, well, dime is, 6 D-backs, okay? You want to have your linebackers on the field, but this team is a 3-4 defense right now. It just is. But anyway, let's listen to the rest.
Is that we're talking two sides of the coin between week 1 and week 2 as far as how Zimmer called this game, each one of those games. I got some trends here. I was doing some of my homework because, science. So versus the Browns, the Cowboys ran. So like Isaiah said, so nickel could be 4-3, 3-4, depending on what your base is supposed to be. 3 down man front, 4 down man front, whatever the case. However, nickel could be seen as a sub package unless it's run the majority of the time. The Cowboys ran nickel against the Browns 89% of the time.
Yeah. 89%.
That made nickel their base in that game. Okay. They ran their base in that game only 11%, and 0 of the snaps had a 4 down man front. No 4-3. Okay. So the base was most purely, and I think 3-4.
If you think about that, week 1. Now I get it; they didn't have a Derrick Henry, but you have still a 3-4. You can stop the run easily with a 3-4. 89% of the time they ran a 3-4. 3 down linemen, basically 4 linebackers. That's the key. That's the key. Unless you have 2 behemoths playing defensive tackle. This goes out to why I say Drew was, in retrospect, I expected more out of our D tackle. It's a simple fix. It's a simple fix. But anyway, let's listen.
You look at what they want to do as a defense, it's probably classified as multiple.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just part of it. That's the NFL in general.
There's going to be some muddy waters as far as
4 to 3.
Correct, exactly.
Whoever is down lineman.
Like that. And was that a Bill Belichick sort of ideal, back whenever the Patriots were, going 17-0? Like,
I think it dates back even further than that.
Further than that? Okay.
I might be mistaken on based off of where I was looking at you because you played for Belichick. Yeah,
I think that comes from the Parcells.
Is that from the Parcells?
Yeah, got it.
There you go. Now, so keep that in mind. So they ran nickel 89% against the Browns, base only 11% against the Browns.
Now get this.
And this quite literally flips. I'm not kidding. These numbers are real. Versus the Saints, they ran nickel 11% of the time. And they ran base 89% of the time.
So an actual complete flip.
Yeah, and they got cooked for it. Yeah, they got cooked.
And we're going to listen to the rest of it real quick, but 11% they ran their best, their nickel, which is 3 down linemen, I get it. That's not what Zimmer. Now Zimmer is multiple. Zimmer will do multiple, but he wants to run his base 4-3. That we can't do that right now. Maybe on some teams, but not with a team that has a dynamic running game. Okay, we can't. But right now, we need to lean on the 3-4 people. That is the key. But listen,
and just remind the people. Let's go back a year, right? This defensive personnel grouping was founded on the basis of a nickel defense.
Nickel
so the personnel that you have,
most of the league is running nickel.
We had this conversation when we were looking at defensive coordinators. I said you don't currently have the personnel to run the defense that Mike Zimmer likes to run,
both up front and in the secondary.
Shout out to Isaiah. Stand back here. That's bottom left. Super Bowl champion with the New England. We actually, I believe, drafted him out of the University of Washington. Isaiah Stanback he's been a part of DallasCowboys.com for a few years after he retired. He's with Good Morning Football. Just listen to him finish up, and then we'll get back to me. But very, very impressive.
Right, so now we start talking about the game that so far, right, the work that we have to look at. The game in which you were the most impactful defensively, you ran the personnel groupings from the roster from last year.
Yeah.
Now, when you try to say, okay, now I'm going to do my system, my 3 linebackers, my 4 down guys, what happened?
They got cooked. Huh. But in numbers support that as well. Thus far through the first 2 games, base package splits in the base, they're allowing 7.2 yards.
7.2 yards in a base 4-3.
In
Not
the nickel,
good.
They're only allowing 3.7 yards per play.
3.7. That's
personnel.
drastic.
Yep. So,
3.7 yards would be up near the top of the league. Now, I'm not saying you can do that week in and week out. We have to understand that Cleveland had a couple backup linemen. I get it. But clearly our strength is running nickel and running a 3-4. There will be times when you could run a 4-3, certain spots in a game. But you cannot run it against a team like New Orleans, obviously, going forward, unless you get better pieces. And what I mean by better pieces is in order for that 4-3 to truly work, you need to do what we've been saying with the D tackles. We were getting gashed to the outside as well. Again, it's a simple fix.
Because most people are going to look at that and say, well, you're bigger in base. Yes, you are bigger in base. Yeah. But if your personnel is smaller in stature, you might as well be faster.
Yeah.
If we're going to be smaller, we might as well be faster, right? And that was the DQ way, right? Yeah. I mean, you were going to use our athleticism. Right. Yeah, we're smaller. Marquise Bell's faster than your guard, so he's going to run around your guys. Yeah. Right? Like that's what he did. Right? Now, sometimes if they get up on us, yeah, we're screwed. Right? But if the offensive linemen get up on your smaller linebackers, you're screwed too. Yeah. Right? So you might as well have the ability to dip, dive, dodge, dip, and dive.
Dodge
versus take it head on.
And also what's interesting about Mike Zimmer is he doesn't like to swing too far to the other side and take additional linebackers off of the field unnecessarily. Well, unnecessarily subjective, but in his eyes, unnecessarily. He hasn't run a single rep of dime coverage through 2 games, not a single
like dime
one.
For the RT.
And dime being one linebacker. Zimmer's not feeling that
regardless
at all.
of how athletic that linebacker may be.
It's not happening. It's not happening with Mike Zimmer. So if dime's not happening, you can count quarters out. And quarters being the maximum amount of defensive backs that you can have at the expense of your linebackers. So, I mean, it seems like this is trending toward that. And this is what's going to be interesting for Mike Zimmer. Because I looked back at his years in Cincinnati as defensive coordinator. I looked at the 2017 season with the Minnesota Vikings, which is when they went deep into the playoffs. And he ran a good bit of base. So now comes the situation where how is he going to adapt to a nickel personnel, but he's trying to run his system of a 4-3. A lot of time to figure it out, obviously, with a 17-game season plus hopefully the playoffs. But the sooner the better. And as we enter week 3 against the Ravens, you don't know which version of Mike Zimmer is going to show up as far as is he going to run full nickel or is he going to run full base?
I think it'll be a hybrid.
Just going back to full nickel, especially against a mobile quarterback in Lamar. It worked against Deshaun. Put it back in.
That was
mobile quarterback. You need more time to. They're still going to work on the 4-3 base. They are, and don't be surprised that they bring in yet another body at D tackle going forward. They have a couple guys on the practice squad that they're going to elevate them throughout the next few weeks. Look for them to possibly make a deal. We keep hearing, oh, they're in on Devontae Adams, or they're in on it. They're going to look for a D tackle. Okay, they just are. Mozzie, they're going to give every opportunity to be that guy. They have good rotational pieces, but they don't have the big 350, 360 big boys to play that one technique. You know, Linval Joseph, all due respect, is very young. He's very old, and he's limited in what he could do. He's a good rotational piece. That's it.
Was going to be my question. What would you do? Would you play nickel? Dime, I think, at this point is out of the question, which is interesting because if you look back to Dan Quinn last year, Dallas ran 60% of their snaps out dime.
Yeah,
which means, of course, extra DBs, less linebackers.
Right.
A lot of that was because you didn't have the linebackers.
Around the league. Yeah. There was no one above 25% at dime. And
so like the average even lower. No one above 25%.
No one was above 25%.
Part of that was because you
didn't have 60.
Didn't have the linebackers.
Wow.
You had
Dallas ran dime 60%. Nobody else.
What percentage was nickel last week?
Last week nickel was 11. 11% last week.
11%, and that's why you saw the dip in snaps for DeMarvion Overshown.
That is where DeMarvion Overshown comes into play. Base versus sub. He's not been getting a lot of burn in base, if any, but he's getting a ton of it in like nickel and sub packages. Right. So it goes back to my point. You want to spy. You want to use him as a spy, then you have to keep him on the field. And if he's not in your base, then it's going to be a lot of sub in order to keep him on the field.
And the direct quote was not necessarily spy, but something like it.
From him, something like that. Something like it. And then Mike Zimmer said, yeah, it could be Overshown, or it could be Micah Parsons, because that guy's pretty fast and athletic. So one of the two. The Cowboys will have an eye on Lamar Jackson. They'll have an eye on that guy.
So you would go nickel?
Nickel, 100%. And I need to see DeMarvion Overshown on the field. 100%.
Why no Demo in base? Why not?
Their explanation, and I explained this on Twitter.
I'm hearing that Demo played base all week, but I don't know what their base now consists of. Is it their 3-4 base? Is it base 4-3? We don't know. I think over the course of the next few weeks, Zimmer's going to try and get his system in. But last week against New Orleans, it did not work. Now, will the nickel work as good as it did against Cleveland on the road? Cleveland did have success early, but then we shut it right down. More importantly, Deshaun could not move with the 4 linebackers. Remember, we got speedy, fast linebackers. So, again, expect us to run nickel. They're still going to run out their base, but at a way lower percentage than 89.
Based on what I was told by Mike McCarthy, by Mike Zimmer. Don't shoot the messenger, because this is me relaying. This is not me agreeing. But their explanation is because he's coming off of a torn ACL. He missed the back end of the preseason and training camp with a hamstring injury. So particularly the latter took him off of the field wherein they could put him in those base package reps. So instead, it was Maris Leofau getting the majority of the base package reps. So for me, that should mean that as more practices occur, you should see DeMarvion Overshown in more base packages as the season goes along.
Yeah.
This week is not the week for that.
Again, everybody's allowed to grow, right? Nobody was happy after last week. And I'm going to end up with this. We'll listen to another minute, but everybody's allowed to have a bad week, but not the Cowboys. Now, we got blowed out. I also said last time we were on the field, that's not fair, really. But us fans, that's what we think about. The last 2 times we were at home, we got blowed out. Okay, let's listen to this, and then I'll wrap it up.
Because I don't want to see a lot of base packages this week, right? I want to see the nickels and the subs, because you got to keep Lamar Jackson contained. So that's the explanation. Do I agree? No. But solution from that should be more practices, should be more base packages as the time goes on.
What if Baltimore comes out and decides just to come downhill? Do you want your base or do you want your nickel?
Do you have the size for the base? Does it matter?
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying.
It doesn't matter.
Right. Exactly. No, seriously.
No, that's my point.
Right. Let's say you want to commit to a 4-3 because it's Derrick Henry. He's coming downhill. We just started the top of this episode with concerns at the defensive tackle position.
And we saw how it played out last week.
So it doesn't matter.
Without
at that point, the scheme is defeated by the personnel.
By the size of the personnel.
Or lack thereof. You know what I mean? So you might as well go with your speed and focus more on containing Lamar Jackson while tasking the guys up front to do, what they can do.
And just for perspective, the Dallas Cowboys nose tackle, right? If you had a nose tackle, right? Nose tackles are usually a terminology that's used for a 3-4 defense, but nose tackle or one technique, however you want to call it, is 300 pounds, right?
That's not bad.
On average.
On average. Yeah. Right? 300 pounds, right? Yeah. Mozzie's like 290 probably. Then we got Osa probably 285, 290. Yeah. Right? So we're around the 300 mark.
Osa's not a one tech, though.
He's not. He's not. But I mean,
he's kind of all you got.
He's all you got. So,
as far as size goes.
So Jordan, you got Jordan Phillips, you got Linval Joseph, right? Those guys are about 3.
I don't know. Carlos Watt might come in.
I don't think Carlos 300. I haven't seen him though.
Carlos Watt.
So
listed as 305, but
so think about it. So Dallas's interior defensive lineman averages about 300.
You got to go 3-4. Get the linebackers up there.
Is 300, maybe 305 at the beginning of camp. The Baltimore Ravens' first point of contact on the defensive line is 355 pounds.
Wow.
That's a lot of beef. A lot of beef.
And the next man over is 340 pounds.
A lot of beef.
Wonder what their Quaker Oats intake is.
So when you guys are thinking about, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday, right? When you start talking about the ability to stop the run, it starts with those interior guys, and it has less to do with ability, unless you were freaking Aaron Donald.
Yes,
right.
That he is the exception.
He's the exception, and Aaron Donald was 290, right? But he was an explosive and quick 290, right? And that's the only reason why he didn't get moved off the ball.
And solid,
built for tough. So understand the difference in the scheme and what you're trying to do and what you're allowed to do based upon your personnel. It has nothing to do with these guys' abilities, y'all. I'm not taking a shot at that. I'm just saying that in the game of football, in the trenches, size matters.
Yeah.
Tyler Biotis wasn't big enough.
Yeah.
He wasn't big enough to initiate the ground game that you wanted. I didn't say anything about talent. I said his size dictated his ability. And the same thing goes for this style of defense that he's trying to instill, and we're going to find out a lot about it. We had one shot of it in Cleveland, right, versus a 2 out of 5 guys on offensive line were backups, right? But they took care of business. Dallas did. I'm talking about. And then last week we got disrespected, right? New Orleans just moved us off the ball, right? So we have a sample size of good. We have a sample size of really bad. You're about to find out at the core who you have on defense on the defensive front. Regardless of personnel, how effective can this defense be with this personnel? You're going to find out really quick when those guys decide to put their hand in the ground.
And also be careful with the 4-3 in this coming off of the Saints game, because if you look at the Saints game, go back and look at some of the more explosive plays. They were in that base 4-3.
Yep.
Right? So that 57-yard catch and run from Alvin Kamara, that was a 4-3. Okay? That 70-yarder from Rashid Shaheed, that was a 4-3. Right? So learn.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Basically, this, people. Fix this camera. There we go. Basically, this is what we're talking about. Is it a perfect situation? No. But with this right now, until we get better at the point of attack with our big boys, our best chance is to run a 3-4 base nickel defense right now. Play the 4 linebackers. You'll be able to spy Lamar. You're going to give up runs at times. We're just going to have to be quick off the ball. Mozzie, I don't know how much he's going to play this. He's going to play a little bit, but they're going to roll Golston. Yeah, they're going to roll either Denzel Jackson might get the call up. You're going to see Carl Lawson get some play. He's a good run stuffer. Look for Marshawn Nealon. To play a little bit inside. Again, that'll allow more linebacker, more of the big boys on the field. You're going to give up some runs. That's just the way it is. The key to tomorrow's game is the scoring points. That goes back to the Baltimore Ravens. If you're going to throw stats in my face, everybody, I'm throwing them right back at you. Baltimore Ravens are last in the league yards against via the pass. So Do I think they can get some? Dallas is going to get some. I think Dallas will actually be able to convert third. You want to be in 3rd and 3 or less. That's what you want to be. Okay? You want to be able to get a lead and play your 3-4. You're going to give up runs here and there. I get it. So far, Derrick Henry hasn't had a 100-yard game. Okay? The last thing we want is to have this dude have 160 yards. And if you run your base 4-3, it's very well going to happen. It will happen. If you run a 3-4 and we get a lead, we're going to push them out of their comfort zone. Get a lead. You have that spy on Lamar, and that keeps you in the game, and I believe we're going to win the game. Very close game. Brandon Aubrey is actually better than, believe it or not, he's better than Tucker on the other side right now. Brandon Aubrey is a real weapon. Look for this game to come down to a last drive, which goes to my final stat. Dak Prescott has 22 fourth-quarter drives in his career. Tomorrow he will get 23. I believe Dallas wins the game by a field goal. At the end of the game, I think it's going to look ugly at times, but I believe Dallas moves the ball. I do, via the pass. Just, to run down. Surprisingly enough, Matt Stafford lead. He's the highest active guy on the list with comebacks. He has 44 fourth quarter winning drives. Dak is at 22. Dak sits. You got, believe it or not, you got Stafford. You got Russell Wilson. You got Derek Carr. Derek Carr's got 34 fourth quarter game-winning drives. So good luck, birds. Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins is 29. Andy Dalton, 29. Joe Flacco at 26. I don't know if he's still in the league. And Dak Prescott has 22. I expect 23 tomorrow. But all right, everybody, that's it from me. I will talk to everybody later. Just remember one thing.
How about them Cowboys? Yeah!
Late.